You ever had one of those flights where everything feels too perfect, like the calm before a storm you didn't know was coming? That was me, about a year ago, sitting in this sleek private jet with soft leather seats, warm morning lights spilling across the cabin, and the quiet hum of the engines whispering money and control. I was finally breathing after a month of chaos at work. It was supposed to be a smooth ride to the company's annual leadership retreat, a little peace before a long weekend of fake smiles and small talk. But peace never lasts long when pride gets on board. Across the aisle sat my sister. Well, technically my boss, though most people didn't know that yet. Her name's Madeline Shaw. Calm, poised, never one to raise her voice even when she should. The kind of woman who could cut you to pieces with a single sentence and still sound polite about it. She's one of those people who make you sit up straighter without realizing why. Anyway, the flight had been easy so far. A few senior managers, some spouses, a lot of quiet ego in expensive suits. And then she walked in, Victoria Dalton. 40-something, dripping in gold, perfumed strong enough to tax the oxygen system. The kind of woman who doesn't walk into a room, she arrives. She came down the aisle, designer heels clicking like a countdown, and stopped right beside Madeline's seat. I heard it before I saw it. "Excuse me," she said, voice sharp but honeyed. "There must be a mistake. That's my husband's seat." Now, Madeline didn't even look up, just sipped her coffee like she hadn't heard a thing. The flight attendant, this young guy trying way too hard to smile through the tension, politely said, "I'm sorry, ma'am. That seat's reserved for Ms. Shaw." Victoria laughed. You know the kind of laugh that doesn't mean humor, just disbelief wrapped in superiority? "Sweetheart, I think you've mixed something up. My husband's a senior VP. He's earned that seat. This woman can move." And that's when Madeline finally looked up, slowly, like she was giving gravity permission. Her voice was calm, even gentle. "I appreciate the suggestion," she said, "but I'll stay where I am." You could feel the air shift. Victoria blinked, confused that her charm hadn't worked. "You don't understand." "I do," Madeline said, cutting her off, still smiling. "The seat was assigned to me." Silence. The kind that hums louder than the engines. Victoria stepped back, muttering about no sense of rank, and stormed to her seat beside her husband, Greg. I thought that was the end of it. But pride doesn't sit quietly. 10 minutes later, she started again, louder this time, complaining to anyone who'd listen about junior staff stealing seats they don't deserve. Now, here's the thing about Madeline. She doesn't go looking for fights. But she never walks away from them either. She looked up, met Victoria's eyes across the aisle, and said in a voice so calm it was almost kind, "If you have an issue, I'd prefer you address it directly." "Oh, I will," Victoria snapped. "I just don't think it's appropriate for someone of your level to take a VIP seat from an executive spouse." The way she said your level, you could feel the insult slice through the cabin. Madeline smiled, almost sad. "You seem very sure of what people deserve," she said. "Of course I am," Victoria shot back. "There's a system." Madeline tilted her head slightly. "Yes, and sometimes people mistake privilege for value." I swear, you could hear the oxygen leave the room. Someone chuckled under their breath, and Victoria turned crimson. She hissed at her husband, "Do something." He just stared out the window. Now, I probably should have stopped it there, but part of me wanted to see how far it'd go. Madeline didn't need defending. She was playing chess while Victoria was still fumbling with checkers. About 20 minutes later, Victoria got up again, fuming, and demanded to speak with whoever's in charge of this flight. The flight attendant looked terrified, but before he could respond, Madeline stood up slowly and said, "No need to bother the pilot. I can clear up your confusion myself." And that's when it happened. "I'm Madeline Shaw," she said, calm and clear, Chief Executive Officer of Horizon Dynamics. You could have heard a pin drop. Victoria froze, color draining from her face. For a long second, she looked at Madeline like she was trying to find the punchline, and realizing there wasn't one. The flight attendant confirmed it, of course. And that was that. The so-called VIP seat belonged to the woman who signed Victoria's husband's paychecks. Victoria sat down so fast her jewelry clinked. I leaned over and whispered to my sister. That was cold. She just smiled. She'll be fine. People like that always need the last word. And she was right. When we landed, Victoria bolted off the plane first, still trying to save face. Her husband was waiting on the tarmac, clearly nervous. I heard her start. "Honey, You won't believe this woman who pretended to be. He cut her off. Victoria, that is my boss. The silence that followed was art. She didn't say another word. And I should have felt bad, but honestly, watching arrogance implode is a special kind of satisfaction. That evening, we arrived at the retreat, this glass and wood mountain resort straight out of a commercial for success. Everyone was buzzing, champagne in hand, pretending to be best friends. Victoria and her husband looked like ghosts at a wedding, trying to blend into the wallpaper. Madeline didn't say a word about it. Not to me, not to anyone. But I could tell she was planning something. Not revenge, she's too classy for that. More like balance. The next morning, she took the stage for her keynote speech. The company motto glowed behind her. Integrity is leadership. She started soft, thanking everyone for their hard work, her voice steady and warm. Then, without ever naming names, she shifted gears. At Horizon Dynamics, she said, we believe leadership isn't about titles or perks. It's about how we treat people when no one's watching. Respect and humility don't cost a thing, but the lack of them can bankrupt your reputation overnight. The crowd went quiet. You could feel everyone remembering that flight. She continued, her tone calm, but sharper now. True power isn't proven by claiming a seat. It's shown by earning the right to sit at the table. And respect, well, that's the one thing you can't demand. You either have it, or you don't. No one breathed. I glanced at Victoria. She looked like she wanted to sink through the floor. When the speech ended, the room exploded in applause. Everyone stood, except the Daltons, who clapped weakly, eyes down. It wasn't public humiliation, it was surgical correction. Madeline had restored order without spilling a drop of cruelty. Later, during the cocktail hour, Victoria approached me. Her tone was half defensive, half defeated. That speech, she said, was that supposed to be about me? I smiled. Funny, she never mentioned your name. She glared. You think this is funny? I think it's poetic, I said quietly. You demanded a seat you hadn't earned. And now you're sitting in the consequences. Her face fell. For the first time, she looked small. You don't understand, she whispered. My husband's position, this could ruin everything. I looked her in the eye. Then maybe next time, remember that arrogance doesn't look good on anyone, especially in front of the people who write your husband's checks. I walked away before she could reply. Later that night, as the sun dipped behind the mountains, Madeline and I stood outside on the terrace. The air was cold, the sky streaked with violet and gold. She wasn't gloating, just thoughtful. I didn't want to humiliate her, she said softly. Just remind her that titles don't excuse cruelty. She won't forget, I said. Madeline smiled faintly. No one ever does when pride costs them something. And just when I thought it was over, footsteps approached. It was Victoria. Her eyes were red, voice trembling. Ms. Shaw, she said quietly. I wanted to apologize. I didn't know who you were. Madeline turned to her, calm as ever. That's the problem, she said gently. You shouldn't have to know who someone is to treat them with respect. Victoria nodded, whispered something like thank you, and walked away into the dark. We stood there for a while, watching the lights from the hall flicker against the glass. The night felt balanced again, like the world had quietly corrected itself. Funny thing, though, every time I fly now, I think about that seat. How a simple misunderstanding became a lesson in pride, power, and perspective. And maybe that's the point. Sometimes life doesn't punish you out loud. It just lets you sit in the silence you created. So tell me, what do you think? Was Madeline right to let her learn the hard way? Or should she have stepped in sooner? Drop your thoughts below. I read every comment, and I'm curious how you define respect.